My name is Chad, and 12. I was at home with my...
So guys, I'm gonna be reacting to creepy things, creepy animes, stories, so let's just get into it.
My mom, since my dad was going to be out all night. 3 of my best friends came to my house for a sleepover party. We sat in my room playing PlayStation and watching TV. Soon, we noticed it was getting pretty dark outside. Mom ordered pizza for dinner, so when the doorbell rang, we knew that the pizza had arrived. When my mom opened the door, my friends and I were just right next to her because we were pretty hungry at that time. So we waited for her to take her money out and pay for it. The pizza delivery guy seemed like he was in his mid-50s and looked pretty old. While my mother was taking her money out, he looked at us. And all of a sudden, a creepy grin appeared on his face, and his eyes were wide open. It was kind of weird, but we just laughed it off as we didn't think much of it. My mom handed him the money, the pizza guy gave us the pizza, and then left. We took the pizza into my room and watched Netflix while we were eating it. A few hours passed, and my mom came up to our room and said, "It's time for you guys to go to bed. If you need anything, just let me know." My friends brought sleeping bags from their home, so we all got ready to go to bed and lied down. I turned the lights off and went into my bed. We talked to each other for about 45 minutes until it was around 11:45, close to midnight. And we eventually got tired of it. We closed our eyes, not saying a word to one another. Later that night, I heard rustling coming from the backyard. It sounded like someone was walking on a pile of leaves. At first, I thought it was a cat walking around looking for food, as they usually do.
It's probably the freaking, the pizza man. Yes, probably.
Nope.
Alright, I'm gonna go now. Not like go.
However, the next thing I heard was a loud thump. It sounded a lot closer, and like it was hitting my wall. At that time, we already all got up from our spot and heard it. We were so scared to look outside through the window and check what was going on. And then, we saw a hand on the window, lifting it up much higher. We all screamed with fear, and the guy still tried to crawl in. But one of my friends thought much faster. He locked the window, and we all ran out of my room. Then, our house security alarm started going off like crazy. My mom, who was sleeping in her bedroom, came out, turned it off, and asked what was going on. We explained what just happened and looked at the cameras, which were set up outside of our house. There was a guy quietly trying to come down a ladder. I realized the thump on the wall we heard was a ladder. Mom quickly got out her phone and called the police. We locked all of the doors and came back to the monitors to look at the cameras. And we saw the man opened our backyard shed and hid in there. In just a few minutes, the police were already arrived. 3 officers went outside searching for the man, while we gave information to the other officer. And we told him that we saw the man going into the shed out in our backyard. One of the police was holding a gun, and the other 2 were approaching closer to the shed. In the blink of an eye, they had entered the shed, found him in the shed hiding, put him in handcuffs to arrest him. They brought him out front and put him in the back of a police car. That time, lots of people heard the noise, came outside to see what was going on. And surprisingly, the cops found some things like a knife, hammer, and others from his pocket. As he was in the back seat of the car, he looked at us and gave us a creepy grin with wide eyes. At first, I couldn't see his face clearly, but when I concentrated on focusing it more visibly, I was shocked. It was the pizza delivery guy. After that, the police handled the situation, so we could go back to sleep again that night. I don't know what this guy would have done to us if he had successfully got inside.
Chobani Flip. Supernaturally good.
Back when I was 21 years old, I was a strategic firearms commander. This meant that I led a team into dangerous situations that oftentimes involves hostages or civilians who carried guns or other deadly weapons. I had a second-in-command firearms commander working beside me. His name was Callum, and he was my best friend. We always hung out outside of work. And while on duty, he would always joke around and make us crack a smile, even when we were dealing with pretty distressful stuff. We once had a case where a man had possession of a firearm, and we were assigned to take care of it. Callum seemed particularly eager and jumped out of the van before it even came to a full stop. When the rest of the team reached the scene, the man was already shot. Callum still had the gun in his hand. Soon after, I asked Callum why he was so eager to do it. And then he said he had no specific reason. He was just excited. I believed him because he was my best friend. Later on, when I was looking at the man who was shot, I looked him up on social media and realized that he and Callum added each other on Facebook. Upon further investigation, I realized that there were thousands of messages sent between the two where Callum revealed sensitive information about several operations. I knew that he killed this man on purpose, but I had no way of proving it. He was taken to court and was sentenced to 3 years in jail for perverting the court of justice. I testified against him and was no longer his friend. When I was 24 years old, I was still on the firearms team. All that happened with Callum was behind me, and I was happy with my life. One night I went home really late after work. As I walked to my apartment, I realized that it was trashed. I called the police and they reported it, but there was not much they could do because I didn't have a CCTV. As I got into bed, I saw that there was a note on my bedside table. All it said was, "Remember me?" I instantly recognized Callum's handwriting. And now that he was out of prison, I thought that he would move on with his life. I was so wrong. This was his revenge. The next day, I went to the underground parking lot and I saw that my windscreen was smashed. It was clear that he wasn't over me testifying against him. Soon after, I also saw him near my apartment. I ran after him, but he ignored me and ran away. I tried calling his old number, but it was no longer in service. Then an envelope was sent through my door, and it contained hundreds of photos of me at work, home, and even out with my girlfriend at clubs and restaurants. These were all taken very recently. The last one, though, was a picture of Callum and I from years ago, and on the other side, written with a big red marker, were the words, "You're dead." I reported this as stalking and hoped he would end up back in prison. The police had gone to his listed address, but there was no one there. In fact, all of his bags were packed. I knew he was still in the area somewhere, though. One day I was by myself in an unmarked car, and I saw this Toyota Yaris, and it was driving close behind me. It was my gut instinct to get the plate number checked, and I was going to. But then I got a Priority 1 announcement on the radio saying there was a crazy man on a bus who had a knife and stabbed someone. I turned on my sirens and blue lights and headed to the accident. As I got on the bus, he was already arrested, and the ambulance was already there as well. As I was about to leave the bus, I heard a loud bang, and a man on the bus fell down. He was shot through the window by a man who was wearing a black hoodie. He immediately ran. I ran out of the bus and went to the boot of my car. I got my MP5 SF out, which was a large rifle with sniper capabilities. I ran after the suspect and radioed in. They gave me an order of critical shot, which meant I could shoot to kill the suspect. He ran through the town center and went to the left. I was worried about public safety as he had a large rifle as well. I realized instead of running after him, I needed to get on a roof and shoot down. I went to this building that had views of the right and left. It took me 5 minutes, and I was worried that he would have run away by now. As I got to the roof, I turned my gun to the sniper level. I used the eyepiece to scan, and I saw a man in a black hoodie running. I fired a shot, and he fell to the ground. By the time I got there, more armed policemen came to the area. I was shocked to see Callum. He was the one who followed me in the car behind me, and that shot in the bus was meant for me. But he missed. Callum was dead. I felt sad, but also relieved that this was all over. The man shot in the bus survived, and I was promoted for my diligent work. I'm still working in the force.
happened when I was in college. I was 20 at the time, studying for an upcoming exam in biology. That is, until my roommate busted in my room. She wasn't yelling, but I could see she was drunk by her excitement. I rolled my eyes and sighed. I completely lost focus now. But it was okay. I'd kind of gotten used to her behavior. She was a party girl while I was, well, a nerd. I tried to get back on my reading tracks again, but she patted me on the back and drunkenly giggled before speaking. "Come on, Jasmine. Every time I see you, you're always reading a book." I sighed before speaking. "And every time I see you, you smell of alcohol and vomit." She frowned at me. "How about this? I'll be quiet all week if you come to the party tomorrow at 8. I wanted to say no, but then I thought about it. I mean, I do always work really hard. Besides, she won't barge in like this for the whole week? Sounds too good, I thought to myself. So I nodded and continued to read. We got ready. I hadn't dressed up in ages, so I was kind of excited. The party was loud, filled with drunk people making out, bumping and dancing. The party was hosted in a basement-like setting, only it was much bigger and had a lot of space. I'm not going to lie, I did have a few drinks. I wasn't drunk, but I was definitely tipsy. So, as my view became tilted, this guy comes out of nowhere and has small talk with me. He was fairly attractive. He didn't seem drunk. We met and exchanged names. From what I remember, he had red dyed hair and blue eyes. He was white and about 6 feet. His name was Luke. We laughed and talked about topics like studying and books and that kind of thing. The talking went on for about a half an hour. He then said, "Hey, I'm going to get another drink. Want anything?" And I said, "Why not? I mean, I'm having fun." So later on, he came back with drinks. And the next thing I remember, we were making out in the corner of the party room. It was so quick, and then he asked me, "Want to go back to my place?" Which I politely declined. I already know what he wants. Besides, I needed to be on campus in the morning. "Come on, I promise it will be fun." I remember that he kept on trying to get me to go, but he gave up after I made it clear I wasn't interested in going to his place. He rolled his eyes angrily and gave me a paper with a number on it. "Fine. If you change your mind, give me a call." He leaned close to me and whispered against my ear. Then he walked out, and the rest of the night was a complete blank. The next day, I woke up inside my college bedroom, on my bed, next to my roommate snoring on her bed as well. As I got up to shower, a paper fell out of my pocket. It was the number, which made me remember that guy. But I had more important things now. I showered then and went to study. I remember reading my book when all of a sudden I felt dizzy. Then I woke up in the bed with police officers and nurses talking next to me. Turns out I had this dangerous allergic reaction that could only be caused from saliva or any bodily fluids that had come from decaying or rotting flesh. Which to my surprise was weird. I hadn't been kissing anyone, let alone ate anything raw. Then I remembered the guy. I told the police about the guy at the party and gave them the number he gave me. A few weeks passed and my allergies went down so I could live my life normally. I just finished my test when my phone rang. I answered it and it was the police. Turns out the guy from the party had 2 dead, decaying women's bodies inside his apartment that he ate. They must have been there for months. My heart dropped. The thought that I made out with someone who ate human flesh, or even worse, was what if I had agreed to come to his place? I may have been one of those bodies.
This fact happened when I was 15 years old. Beginning of last year, 2018, when I finally got to sophomore year here in Brazil. It was an ordinary Friday night. Suddenly I felt a little bit hungry, so I decided to put on some clothes and go to the snack bar. It was barely 10 minutes from my house. I usually pass through the alley to go to the snack bar, but that time everything was so creepy in there. When I was halfway there, it was dark, empty, abnormally cold and gloomy. I felt slightly intimidated, but there was nothing there that could really harm me. So I decided to just go through that alley. Then I thought, nothing's gonna happen. I kept going until I suddenly heard something weird on the other side of the alley. There was a man in there, staring at the walls in hunchback stance, grunting weirdly.